Welcome aboard, everybody, to this multi-stream watch party for Disclosure. I got the filmmakers, the cast and crew. We got Jay Shear, Art Razzo, Josh, Modern Mouse, Maya, and Jeffrey Bigger. Today, we're going to watch the short film and we're going to talk about it. We're going to take your questions. Up next here, it's a joint stream, How Stories Work /OG55. How y'all doing today? How you doing today, Jay? Long time no see, buddy.
I'm doing well. Yeah, I was a little rushed there at the end, but I'm doing all right. I've been playing. Today was a little bit. Maya and I were talking yesterday about having disabilities in filmmaking, and so I have long COVID, right? So today was kind of a long COVID, like I'm exhausted day. So I played too much Simpsons Fortnite.
Oh,
I
nice.
did too much of that today, but otherwise I'm doing well.
Well, it's good to have you all. It's good to have you all today. This is gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have like a little watch party. We're also gonna take questions from the audience. We're gonna kind of pick the brain of all these amazing creatives on our panel today. But before we watch the short film, Jay, if you want to let the audience know what was your role in this particular film.
Yeah, so I was a producer, co-writer, and director of Disclosure. Second film that I have directed. And for those of you, I can see the chat is kind of like, what are you guys doing? You're not talking about Disney stuff on the OG55 channel. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I also host the Story Geek show on Orange Grove 55. And so OG's been super supportive of our filmmaking. We did a no vacancy watch party, which you can watch actually if you're a member. And then now we're doing this watch party. So yeah, director, co-writer, and producer.
There he is. There he is, Mr. Art Razzo. Art, welcome to the show. If you could let everybody know, what was your role in Disclosure?
Yeah, I play Father Alvarez in Disclosure.
Okay, cool. And we're gonna watch this great short film, and you will all soon know who Father Alvarez is. But Art, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate you. And we got Josh Taylor, a familiar face here on How Stories Work and OG55. Josh, welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, brother. Anytime. What was your role in Disclosure, sir?
I'm not on screen at all in Disclosure. I was the post-production guy doing all the editing.
There he is, Mr. Josh Taylor of Modern Mouse. And we also have Maya, the lovely Maya, joining us today. Maya, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
How are you?
Absolutely. Doing really good. I'm excited to dive into this. Maya, what was your role on the film?
Casting director and also a producer.
There she is, Maya. And last but certainly not least, Jeffrey Bigger. Jeffrey, how are you? And what was your role in the short film Disclosure?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having us today. Play Dr. Townsend in the film.
There we go. We will see Dr. Townsend in this film. We're going to do like a little watch party. Now, Jay, we're going to play the whole thing through.
Yep.
And at the end of that, we'll ask some questions. We'll have the audience, field questions, and we'll kind of go from there. Are you guys ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I'm ready. And if you're in the chat and you're watching the film and you have any questions for us, if you want to know about the filmmaking process, if you want to know what it's like to go through casting and do auditions, if you want to know what it's like to be a director, we're all here to answer your questions. So watch the film, enjoy the film, think of questions as you watch the film, and then hit us up after we're all done, and we'll tackle those questions.
Absolutely. All right. This is a sci-fi short film from award-winning filmmakers Disclosure from the How Stories Work with Jay Shear YouTube channel. And don't forget to smash that like button. Here we go.
Where would you like to start?
I propose we open with the little green men.
UFOs and the associated paranormal phenomena? I don't know, it's a very broad topic.
Are you a Catholic, miss?
I'm only here because the top brass sent me a nasty gram when I declined the first time. So you tell me.
I've tracked down information that many people find uncomfortable, but sometimes the truth is uncomfortable.
Wouldn't it be easier if you just point me in the right direction?
Pretend I don't know anything.
Right. Well, I think we have to conclude that the US government is lying to us.
What I know is classified.
How about the preponderance of evidence among witness testimony? Do you know how reliable witness testimony is? It isn't. So what do I know? I know that UFO experiencers are, to put it bluntly, unreliable.
Several species of extraterrestrial life forms have visited Earth. I possess documents alluding to 4 known species, but I believe there may be many more, quite possibly as many as a dozen.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot, but I'm more interested in what I don't know. Like who you are and how you got my number.
Do you believe in God?
Why don't we pronounce the K in knowledge?
What?
Because we haven't acknowledged it yet. Captain Hawkins used to tell me that joke every time I look the way you look right now.
Super helpful. I'm not getting anywhere.
Not yet.
We're running out of time.
Isn't that the human condition?
If you're trying to make me feel better, it's not working.
I've got bad news, Audrey. It's always like this.
Send in the next one.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to need evidence. Details, please.
According to the people that I've interviewed, the trustworthy sources, not so much the kooky ones, the most compelling evidence I've found is in crash retrieval.
Evidence? There is none. And that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, Joe Schmo claims he's been abducted. Batty Betty says she saw a flying saucer. Sure. How was their eyesight? Were they drug tested? Hypnotized? Perhaps they were just paranoid schizophrenics. The point is, there is no hard evidence.
Here is a summary of my research, starting with Operation Overcast and Paperclip. At the close of World War II, the Nazis had exceptional avionics, rocketry, and other advanced propulsion concepts, including anti-gravity. What the U.S. did not get, the Soviets did. I've included related topics, remote viewing, crash retrieval, and a secret mind control project, MK Ultra. All of these projects were inspired by Nazi scientists. So the question then becomes, how did the Germans make these technological leaps?
Don't go sticking your nose in where it don't belong, lady. What is this, some kind of congressional oversight bullshit? Well, it's a waste of time and money, especially mine. In case I haven't been clear, let me just say it again. It's classified. You do know what classified means, right?
They sparkled like topaz, and all 4 looked alike. Each was made to look like a wheel, intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they would go in any one of the 4 directions the creatures faced. Their rims were high and awesome, and all 4 rims were full of eyes all around. Does that sound familiar?
Who else are you meeting with?
No major world power, that includes the Vatican, has been forthcoming with disclosure. Why be vague?
Let me be anything but. Just because you went to college instead of getting a ring on your pretty little finger does not entitle you to information that I will not give to the President of the United States.
Why do any of us employ deception? Because it benefits us to do so. We use deception to give ourselves an advantage. You look at nature. Deception is practically a tenet of biological evolution. Now ask yourself this. What benefit can be derived from this deception?
I have two theories. One, they believe that disclosure could cause the thin fabric of society to tear. That every human might live under ever-present fear of an alien invasion. This could give way to anarchy. Traditional structures of power, influence, and control could all be uprooted, but the more likely reason, point number two, is the alien technologies that they have discovered provide them with a competitive advantage, money, power, perhaps even superior cognitive abilities.
The Catholic Church has as many arms as a tangle of octopuses, and even more viewpoints. But we do believe in the paranormal. Yes? We see the demon-possessed. We hear the stories of miracles every day. Those who do not have a faith label these as ghosts and ghouls and goblins and aliens. But we know these beings. Extraterrestrials, indeed, but not from other planets. Scripture has given us names for these entities, as they were also created by our Heavenly Father.
Maybe they don't know the answer. Or maybe they don't want anybody else to know the answer.
Immediately after World War II, we found ourselves embroiled in the Cold War, a war we're very much still fighting 2 decades later. Imagine that you found advanced craft from another civilization while simultaneously operating under the existential threat of nuclear annihilation. It would make sense that you would keep those craft hidden, especially if you could reverse engineer them to use against your sworn enemies. So you give the specs to Lockheed, Northrop, General Electric, and other companies to manufacture weapons for you. For us. To me, it's completely logical.
Esther, have you detected any lies or deception?
One sec. Okay, voice data analysis indicates no outright lies, but as you can probably tell, several interviewees are avoiding full transparency.
Maybe our intel was bad.
Or we're being duped?
There is that. Look, if there's been a leak or an epiphany, you'll uncover it.
And if it's too late?
That's why I'm here. You've got this, Audrey. I'll send in the cranky general.
What else could explain this phenomenon?
What do you think I'm gonna say? We're done here.
I think it's a combination of things. Some people are seeing advanced classified military aircraft. Others are seeing natural phenomena. I do think there's a spiritual component, but that's my personal opinion. And of course, others are just hallucinating. I do still think there's a compelling case to be made that we've been visited. That's what my research suggests.
Drug use, alcohol, mental disorders, weather balloons, frisbees. The list is long. There are no alien life forms.
Is it possible God created other beings on other planets? Sure, it's possible. But this is a spiritual war, not a cosmic one.
I have done research into swamp gases, ball lightning, advanced military technologies, many other topics, but I find these explanations less than satisfactory. Of course, hoaxes and fabricated stories are common, but the data clearly points to UFOs and aliens.
Feynman said it better than I ever could. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong.
Thank you for your time.
I don't know who you are or who you work for. And yet, here I am talking to you about stuff that nobody is supposed to know about. Why don't you tell me why anyone in our profession would be vague?
Because the holes in stories get filled with useful misdirection?
And how am I supposed to fill the holes in this story?
What are you not telling me?
I think I told you everything you need to know. Belief. It's a funny thing, right? You and I, we're free to believe anything we want to.
And you really believe it's more interesting to live not knowing?
Look up the Feynman quote. Comes in handy in our line of work. Almost filled up my bingo card. Aliens, remote viewing, angels and demons, craft retrieval.
Don't forget about the misogyny.
Wild time, the 60s. What's the verdict?
I don't know. Something doesn't feel right.
That's the time change. Time travel scrambles the brain a bit. But hey, we got what we needed, right? We're not on their radar. Let them go on blaming aliens. You hungry? You wouldn't believe how good Mickey D's in the 1960s is. It's a must. Come on, you're buying.
Esther, that Richard Feynman quote, the one Riker referenced, I need more info on that.
Coming right up. Full quote. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. It's from an interview Dr. Feynman did for Horizon.
Horizon?
Science show on BBC Two. The interview was part of episode 9 of series 18.
Esther, when did that episode air?
Sorry, this can't be right.
When, Esther?
November 23rd, 1981. But, Audrey, how is that possible?
Shit.
Fantastic. Fantastic stuff. Really, really cool. Jay, I want to start with you. Okay, so this is a fascinating topic. We've talked a lot about alien stuff on my channel with the pyramids, all this kind of crazy stuff. What was your inspiration for this? Because like this is something that I think taps into like that human curiosity factor quite a bit. And I mean, I want to kind of tap your I want to pick your brain as to what was sort of like your mindset going into this.
So mindset going into this was I, like you, listened to a lot of podcasts about people talking about paranormal things, right? Whether it's so one of the inspirations for this film is me listening to all of these different perspectives, and I can name people, right? Like Art's character, Father Alvarez, is not based on a Catholic priest, but is based off of a scientist who happens to be Christian, and he's studied the topic and says, "I think it's angels and demons," right? Well, Kelly Forster's character, Dr. Shire, she plays the lady in the white dress. Her character is based off of Diana Pasulka, who's a UFO researcher, ufologist, right? So I'm listening to all of these podcasts. I've listened to like dozens of hours of these podcasts, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go, we all really enjoy this topic. What is it about this topic that we enjoy about it? It's because it's a mystery. We don't really know what's going on. We enjoy it because we really wonder if something's being hidden from us, because it probably is, right? And we also it brings to mind questions about where did we come from and where are we going and what is it supposed to look like. Now, obviously, you've seen those of you who just watched the film, you know it's about some time travelers who are actually messing with people, and you know, I've written a time travel book before, so I have a lot of things that I've been collecting over the years, and it just right now the disclosure stuff is so popular and so compelling that it felt like the right time to make a film like this.
100%. You're right. Right now is absolutely the time with Three Eye Atlas, all this stuff. It's like everything is like very front and center right now, even in the mainstream media and what have you. You know what I'm saying? Now, the one thing I really loved about Disclosure is how intimate, I guess that's the word I would use, how intimate it is when I'm looking for stuff like this, when it comes to the universe, aliens, things that tap into my curiosity and my imagination. I like my imagination to sort of fill in the gaps. I'm not drawn to like the CGI, like crazy alien, this, that, and the others. I like the more like, let's tap into what you're curious about. And that's what this film does really well, where it's like, there's not a bunch of CGI. You don't see a bunch of aliens and ships and all this stuff. It presents ideas and perspectives about the possibilities. And I think that's fascinating. I love that about this film. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. For me, that's why I watch a lot of this stuff, like on Netflix or whatever, about all this, because that's what really gets me going. It's not like the big crazy Hollywood CGI alien ships, all that. It's like the what if factor, you know?
Oh, totally.
I love that.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, when you listen to a 3-hour podcast where somebody's talking about all of these things that are going on, what my job is as the co-writer of this and the director is to say, can I distill down 3 hours worth of conversation into a perspective and get that across very quickly, right? And so you're taking these like larger conversations and distilling them down into like maybe their most interesting parts, right? But there was a question in my mind about this all takes place at one table. It's my kitchen table, by the way.
I love it.
And it all takes place at one table. And how do you make that entertaining? Because it could be super boring. And I'm sure some people would find it super boring. It's like people just talking about stuff. But I found listening to 3 hours worth of a podcast, multiples of those, really fascinating because the topic was so interesting. And so when you put these perspectives side by side, and when you have Art say something like, this is a spiritual battle, not a cosmic one, and you have Jeffrey say something like, there's no such thing as aliens, right? What that does to me is it says, this is one viewpoint that somebody has, this is another viewpoint somebody has, and now I instantly create conflict. And one of the reasons we shot it looking direct on at the audience was because I was actually trying to create a little bit of conflict in the audience. Like, are these people asking me to figure out which one of them is the one that like I should trust and I should like and I should like listen to? And so you're just trying to play with all of these dramatic elements in order to create a narrative film. And so you do the best you can. But this was a super fun project, and everybody brought their A game. So it was really fantastic to work with this cast and crew.
Well, yeah, and you're right. You have all these perspectives in this film. You have the religious perspective, the kind of the naysayer perspective. You got like the nerdy perspective, like, no, it has to be aliens. I got all, but all that stuff plays into the audience trying to like figure out like, where do I stand on this? You know,
Exactly.
am I the nerdy guy who thinks aliens are for sure? Or am I more on the religious side where it's like, no, these are angels and demons? You know what I'm saying? I love that because it taps into, and that's what makes it for me so interesting, because it taps into that human like curiosity, you know, and it gets the audience involved, like Pandora 576 says, psychologically, you know, and I love that. Now, your character, Father Alvarez, to obviously took a much more of a religious angle on this. What were your takes on your character in terms of like, you know, I mean, is this vastly different than your own beliefs, or how did this character separate from how you are in terms of this topic?
Yeah, well, I had never really looked at like these subjects from a religious aspect. And so, you know, because I've seen podcasts too where there's like evidence of flying objects and all these things. And, you know, I've talked to people. I talked to this one guy in Roswell, just he had lived there all his life. So I kind of asked him what had happened back then, because he was a kid and all these things. So once I read the script and saw where I was coming from as Father Alvarez, I was like, well, this is interesting because what is this scripture? You know, so I looked that up, and then, okay, well, what is the perspective of it? And why is that perspective? Why is it from the religious aspect that it's angels and demons and not aliens? You know, where does that come from? So you dig a little bit more and dig a little bit more. And so, yeah, that was pretty new to me. So that was very interesting to research for the role, was all that new content. And that's what I like about the film overall, because to somebody watching it that doesn't know that, they're like, well, what does that character mean? Or what is, you know, if they don't know what Operation Paperclip is, well, I want to look that up, or MK Ultra, you know. So it has all the perspectives, but it also leaves a lot of questions and interest. And the same thing for my character. Well, what entities am I talking about when it comes to what scripture says? You know, so I think anybody watching, it gives them a whole bunch of different doors to go down to, I don't know, just find out where these characters are coming from. So yeah, it was a brand new perspective and a very interesting one, because I've even continued to look into it from that perspective since we've finished shooting. So, you know, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing I think about, you know, being an actor too, probably, right? Where like when you take on these roles, you kind of learn about things maybe you wouldn't have researched before, right? So, and this is a case where, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's fascinating.
For sure. Yeah,
you know?
That's one of the fun things about acting is, yeah, whether you're doing a historical piece and you just never studied the Old West in that part or whatever, or in this case, religion that in depth, or scripture. You know, I had to look up looked up what the scripture was. So never heard that part of the Bible. You know what I mean? I've heard other things. You know, there's famous sayings and prayers, but you know, this, yeah, it was. You learn so much as an actor when you take on a role, and that's part of the beauty of it.
I love that. I love that. I got real deep when Jay did a live stream a few days ago. I asked him in regards to the religious aspect, you know, like what if other civilizations on other planets, what do they have a Jesus type figure on those planets,
right.
you know, and like, how does that all work? Right. Because we have Jesus here, we have scripture and all this stuff. Right. But like, you know, another planet with other beings, like, did God create another kind of Jesus type figure to kind of teach them certain lessons or whatever? And that kind of, I kind of go down that rabbit hole mentally, like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I love that. Now, Jeffrey, your character seemed much more skeptical, so to speak, of the whole idea of aliens. If you want to elaborate on that and your character.
Yeah, it was an interesting piece. Like when you first got the script and started tearing things apart, as an actor, you have to think about, why does this character behave this way, and what's causing these feelings of skepticism? Where is it coming from? And so Jay was really great in allowing us to sort of write these backstories and where's our character coming from. And so I was playing with all of that. You know, he's a naysayer, but what if what if his naysaying is coming from not his own personal perspective, but from a forced perspective? He's forced to say that this didn't happen. He's forced to say that these people are crazy. And so I wanted to play with, he's got to say these things for because people are forcing him to say this. Like, I wanted to play the opposite of where it was coming from and to see if that was all going to sort of play out. So I don't know that actually Dr. Townsend actually is a naysayer. I think that he actually may believe that he's being forced to say these things to cover up what other people need him to cover up.
Interesting. I love that. And that feels very, what's the word for it? Very organic in a lot of ways, because I feel like that is something that definitely in our world, in our society, because the whole thing of this film is disclosure. But what's the risk of disclosing this stuff, right? And the powers that be, I'm sure, gonna try everything they can to kind of get certain things not released, because is it going to cause mass panic? Is it going to this or that? So it makes sense that, there would be a little pressure there. You know what I'm saying? So that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Now, Jeffrey, what were some of the biggest challenges in regards to this role that you kind of encountered for playing Dr. Townsend?
The challenges were from, typically when you take on a role, there's a lot of blocking and there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of things that inform your decisions as an actor, and that physicality lends itself to how you deliver your lines and those sorts of things, your pace and whatnot with the character, to be seated the entire time and to not have any blocking. That was initially a challenge. It wasn't until we got on set and I sat in that chair and the light was on and I thought, oh, now I get it. Now I understand, like, this tension's coming from where that light is placed and where the person is asking the question. So that was, initially it was a challenge. I thought, we're just sitting for the entire time. Like, I have to keep it interesting. It's got to be interesting to watch from an audience perspective, like in how you deliver the lines, the pace, and what lines you're going to punch, what words are going to be the most important, how you're going to move. If you do move, it needs to be very specific, and there's got to be a reason behind it. If you look one way, not one way, move a hand, raise an eyebrow, everything is caught because you're not doing anything else.
Yeah, no, well said. And Jay, you touched upon that, right? Where it's like, it's just the kitchen table, basically, right? And so the acting, I mean, the dialogue and everything really has to come through, because there's no action scenes, you know what I'm saying? So that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. And some people, some people who are at the table read, we did a table read. One of the things I like to do when I'm directing a project, and I've already written it, is test the writing by doing a table read and test my ability to direct people in their understanding of a character that they haven't done any research on, right? Or very limited research, at least. And so one of the things that, a screenwriter friend of mine said was like, man, I might do some like screens in between that were like sci-fi imagery of some kind, right? To kind of keep it moving, so to speak. But I think that for me, like, the question was, well, why do I listen to 3 hours worth of a podcast on this topic? And part of it for me is sitting there thinking, like, because I'm living in the tension of thinking through what I believe. And so if I distract from that tension too much, I give people the opportunity to go, okay, cool, this is not as serious, and I'm not gonna dig in. But if you just stay there, if you just stay in that moment, it's like, okay, wait a minute, what do I really believe? What's really going on screen? But I mean, those choices are all, I mean, anytime you're going to make a shot choice, anytime you're going to make a line choice, word by word, it's all inherently risky, because someone's going to say, I don't like it that way. Or someone else is going to say, oh, you could have done it this way, and I would have liked it this way better. So every single choice that you make you take is a risk. And I think one of the things that we talked about yesterday when we were talking about the film on our live show was, and this question came up from one of my friends too, but how do you convey tone and feel for what the vision is, And it becomes so important, because if Jeffrey or Art doesn't, or any of the other performers, if they don't understand what the vision of the piece is, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't mean they have to understand every single shot choice I'm making, but if they don't understand the overall vision of like what the contribution is, then it's very, very, very difficult to make a great piece of art, right? And so part of it is coming together as a team. And this is one of the reasons why I really like working on backstories with people. Like Art went off and did a bunch of research that I didn't talk to Art about that. He just went for it, right? Jeffrey and I talked about like, well, what does the character's backstory look like? These are people who I had a conversation with Fabian. Fabian was he plays Peter Rockford, who's one of the time travelers. He's talking to Audrey. He's the tall guy talking to Audrey with the deep voice. He calls me up and says, "How many times has Peter Rockford had McDonald's in the 1960s?" Because he seems to really like it, right? Like these are questions that like are what they do is they bring a team together around a shared story that we're trying to tell and a shared experience that we're trying to convey. So it's pretty awesome and very rewarding both as a writer and as a director when everybody shows up and like they're dedicated to it. It's just a whole completely different thing, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Well said, well said. And Pandora here actually has a question for Jeffrey. I wondered if the doctor's finger movements were a tell that he was lying or misdirecting. Jeffrey, you want to elaborate on that? That's interesting.
That was, it's not that he was lying or misdirecting. It was one of those moments where we were sitting there in the in the green room before we were getting ready, and I had on the way over to the shoot that morning, I was like, Dr. Townsend has to have something. There's got to be something for him to share where he's coming from, but he can't say it outright. He can't speak it because he's being paid to keep his mouth shut, basically, is sort of where my character's coming from. And so I thought, what can he do that can sort of allude to that? And so I asked Jay, I said, what if he taps out SOS with his finger on the table? So it's like, this is what I can't say anything, but that is SOS in Morse code on the table that I'm tapping out. And so it's sort of like, help, I'm tired of covering up all this nonsense, and I can't tell you this, but I can tap out SOS and maybe someone will catch it.
That's fascinating. I love that. I love that little Easter egg, but like that's a good catch, Pandora. Because I noticed that it was very deliberate. You could tell, you could see it, but I love that little detail in there, to kind of flesh out that backstory. Now, Maya, you are the producer and the casting director of Disclosure, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. So what were your okay, so obviously casting director, you helped, cast the film. But as a producer though, for a film like this, what was some of your roles for the film? Like
well, I kind of came into the producer role a little bit by surprise. Jay was generous enough to give me that credit. But I think what happened, I think it had largely to do with the fact that he would reach out when he had specific needs for crew or whatever, or location. And I was like, yeah, contact this person, ask that person, that sort of thing. And then during the shoot, I also communicated with the cast and crew about the location, and as well as I was a reader against whom the other actors could respond to, because sometimes it's a little weird being an actor without having somebody to or something to respond to, as opposed to just like blurting out your lines. Mm-hmm. So trying to give it a little bit more of an authentic feel for the actors to be able to say their lines. So those are kinds of the hats I wore. I don't know, Jay, anything I'm missing or embellishing?
No, I mean, so Maya and I met, what would this have been? May of this year.
Yeah.
And we met at the No Vacancy screening that we were doing in Northern Colorado. And I've never made a movie in Northern Colorado before, right? No Vacancy was made in California. And so when we wanted to do this film, and this film came out of like, we have a feature film associated with it. We have another short film associated with it. But the reason we made this film, and the reason we kept it so small and around a table, and in just one location kind of shoot, was because filmmaking is super expensive. So we had to keep the budget down as much as we possibly could. But we also wanted to learn a few things. I have directed 2 films now, Disclosure and No Vacancy. No Vacancy, I had a really wide net of people that I could fall back on if I didn't know what I was doing, right? And I think that film came out really well, and I'm really pleased with that film. But I kind of wanted to try something myself, and also Nathan, my co-writer, I was looking for a role to have for him on set. He's never DP'd anything before. He's never been a cinematographer, never been a director of photography before. And I said, hey, what if I have 2 things that we should do. I'll get back to answering the question about Maya, but this is pertinent. I said, what if we film on iPhone? This film is 100% shot on iPhone.
Wow.
And 2, what if you're the DP? Nathan was like, oh, okay, cool. So I had Nathan, who was out of state from Colorado, and then obviously Josh used to live in Colorado, but he's living in California now. And then Sam, who did our music, he's in Florida. Everybody else is from Colorado, but I didn't know any of them. I didn't have any relationships. So I meet Maya at the screening of No Vacancy, and I'm thinking, like, I need to do a movie that's a smaller movie. I need to test out and learn a few different aspects of what it's like to film on iPhone, what it's like to not have people to fall back on, and from a directing standpoint, I want to be able to direct. So the instant connection with Maya was that Maya is a person who knows how to get the right resources. She knows who's good. She knows what kind of situations you should probably avoid. And so that was super helpful. So basically what happened was I was just asking Maya a ton of questions about how do I shoot in Colorado, because I've never done this before. And Maya's giving me all these resources, And I had a casting director operating out of Denver, and that casting director was super cool, who was going to do the casting for me. And then what happened was that person had to have an emergency surgery, and right when we were going to cast, like right at the time. And so she was like, I'm just going to give you a bunch of resources, and then like hopefully you can figure it out. But I apologize. I have to do this other thing. I have to go get surgery, and so Maya's giving me all these helpful resources. She's telling me about where I can find different actors and who in the area is really good. And so I said, Maya, I don't know if you've ever casted anything before, but would you be willing to help me cast this movie? And Maya's like, yes. And this is the thing, is Maya doesn't do anything that is a shortcut or that is like a there's some people who I would say, would you cast this movie? And they would say, I've never cast anything before. And then they'd come up with some crazy process to cast the movie. And I would be like, oh, I've never done this process before. Not Maya. Maya knew exactly what the process was. She's an actress, so she knows exactly what the process looks like and puts together a super professional process for us to cast the film. She was also helping me with the table read before the film actually was shot. And so for me, it was like, okay, Maya is instrumental in introducing me to the right people. Maya found the location for us. Maya cast the film. Maya is telling me, hey, I have a Costco card and can go with you to Costco to pick up snacks.
Hey, that works, you know?
And it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, Maya, you're producing. Maya, you're producing the film. And so it was easy. I talked to Nathan, because Nathan and I's production company is the one that funds the film. And I said to Nathan, hey, I think we should give Maya a producer credit because she's super valuable to this whole process. So yeah, that's how Maya got involved and was very instrumental in being able to bring people into this. And so Maya was involved in all the casting. So, Maya brought Jeffrey in. Here's a kind of a cool story. We did a table read. Jeffrey played a different character. He played the general in the table read. And then I said to Maya, Maya kept telling me how awesome Jeffrey is. And I said, oh yeah, cool. Let's like, he seems really awesome. Like at the table read, he was great. But I had also seen Bobby Lee Black, who plays the general in the film that we watched. And I knew that, like, wow, that is a type of profile that is very difficult to come by, because it is like he used to be a WCW wrestler. He used to be like buffed out too. I think he's not working out maybe as much as he used to, but he's still really tall and imposing. Well, that's not something that you can even coach. Like, he has a deep voice that's like gravelly. Like, you can't even coach that. And so Jeffrey auditioned for both roles, Townsend and the general. And I said to Jeffrey after he did that, I said, which one do you resonate with more? And he was like, "Oh, I like Townsend." I'm like, "That's awesome because I can go to Bobby for the general." And now what you're doing is, Maya was very helpful in this too, is you're putting together a group of people who where there's a level of, I'll say differences in them. I could use diversity, but that has connotations that are just related to race and ethnicity. But I mean all around the board, right? Do we have people who, when they sit at the table? I mean, one of the things I love about Brett's performance, Brett plays Cyril, who has the folder. He's hunched over and he's down, right? He's doing this. Whereas you have Art, and Art is very comfortable. Art is a guy that you feel like you'd want to have coffee with, right? I'd say you'd want to have a beer with him, but I don't know if he drinks. Meaning the priest, not Art. And yet Art does these really subtle movements, like he does the this movement, and then he also says the our Heavenly Father. I love these little idiosyncrasies that they bring, but each one is bringing a very different kind of thing, and that's what you're looking for. Because what you don't want is everyone doing the same thing. Everyone doing the same thing is suddenly boring, right? And so you're looking, and in this film, there's not a lot of stuff they're doing. They're doing very minor things. So you want those minor things. I mean, one of the things that Jeffrey said, we did a premiere in Fort Collins, and I don't remember exactly how you put this, Jeffrey, so you can correct me, but he said something to the effect of like, "Oh, look, I did the eyebrow thing," and I'm like, Jeffrey, I love the eyebrow thing. Like in a person who's staying that still to do something like that means something, because he's sending you a signal about what he's trying to say and what he means. So I think that we were really fortunate to find a fantastic group of people, top to bottom, and it was not, I won't say it was the easiest movie to cast. We filmed No Vacancy during the SAG strike, and so there was a bunch of people who weren't working, and we had thousands of auditions. We had dozens of auditions, but those dozens of auditions were great, and it was even hard because we had to exclude people that were fantastic, you know.
Well, Maya, I want to ask you about that, like, because obviously going into a film, right, when you're casting, I'm sure you have like each character has a certain, you guys are looking for a certain thing that, like there are certain characteristics of each character that you're looking for. With Disclosure, how different did that end up being? Because I'm sure also there's a lot of flexibility, right? Like sometimes you might go in there with like this idea of like, we want the character to be this, that, and the other, but then someone walks in and you're like, well, actually, that actually works even better. Did you notice that? Like there was a lot of instances where like what you guys had on paper might not necessarily been what actually worked best for the film.
There were some cases, like you said, where the person walked in, it's like, okay. So for example, for Rockford, there were, I think 3 or 4 that we were like, we really like their take. Like it was very close. And, each one did bring something different. And, the kind of conversations that Jay and I had regarding the Rockford character, it was like, okay, it looks this way on this person. If we were to ask this person to do the same thing because we like what this person does, it would fundamentally be different. Like we could all put on the same suit, but it would look different on each one of us. So that's kind of one of the beauties about the casting process, is just even the same interpretation looks so wildly different. But then there were some reads where I was like, oh, I was not expecting that. That was interesting. And so then Jay and I would go back, and Jay, Nathan, and I would talk about like, oh, what did you think of this? So we had the initial auditions come through, and we reviewed the tapes, and then we decided, okay, we really like this take, or this was really different. I kind of want to see what they would do if I gave them some different direction. And that kind of also becomes part of the process. Is like, that was an interesting take. I like their vibe. Let's see if we can direct them. Like how does Jay's communication as a director vibe with that person? Is there a communication gap? Not that one person is better than the other, but it's like, do they understand what I'm saying? Am I saying in a way that makes sense to them? So there's that. But also, if in the moment or ahead of time we decide to shift the character, how well can they adapt that? Or how much are they wedded to a particular version of this particular character? Even though we like it, it may not ultimately fit into the greater kind of puzzle of disclosure. It, like Jay was talking about, how each one brings their own thing, and it's like, well, you don't want to have like 2 bags of Idaho potatoes. You want a russet and you want an Idaho potato. Terrible analogy. I hope you got from the A to Z with me. But you know, kind of how does that work? So I'm trying to think of the people we cast. Brett. I would say Brett was one of the biggest surprises. He's the one who plays Cyril. And he was, I think, probably one of the biggest surprises. Very pleasant surprised. Loved what he did in his initial audition. His callback was really good, and he responded so well to the notes given. And then day of, it was like a whole new character was born, and that was very cool to watch. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, perfect. And I love, that's what I love about this creative process, is that sometimes like the on paper thing, it takes a life of its own. You know what I'm saying? Like, as you go through that process, and you know, you have people coming in and out, and the casting, and just the whole process of like, and even with No Vacancy, Jay, you were talking about how wasn't it like the car? Yeah, switch cars or something like that.
Yes.
Right. Because you had the car drama, and how that changes the film. It was crazy, but how that changes the film, right?
Yeah. No Vacancy. No Vacancy takes place in the 1970s, and I had a car guy who was volunteering for me, a friend of a friend, and he was finding 1970s cars that we could use in the film. And the location we were shooting at had cars you could rent to. So what OG is referring to is that I had this 1970s, I can't remember what kind of car it was. I'd have to look it up. It was Chrysler something, I believe. But it looked like a very much a luxury car. And the character who owns this car is sort of like a Lex Luthor style character. So he's rich, right? He has a nice car, of course. In the 70s, he's got a cool car. But the morning we're supposed to be shooting, and this car is on set the entire time because it doesn't move. It's just in the we actually shoot inside that car and outside that car, but it's always at the motel, so it's almost always somewhere on screen. Well, the guy calls me up and he's like, the car is on airbags. It has an airbag suspension, and it hasn't moved in 10 years. And the airbags won't inflate. And so the wheels are sitting on the wheel well, and I literally can't get this car. So what we had to do is we had to rent a car from the place we were shooting. They didn't have luxury cars from the 1970s. They only had muscle cars. And I literally had to rewrite the script because there was a line that was referencing the car. And I'm like, well, that line doesn't work because that's not the kind of car that is. You know what I mean? So like on set, you're going, by the way, your lines are different today because we didn't get a car that we wanted, you know? So having to adapt is one of the things I think you need to think about when you're making films. And this is something you don't hear oftentimes from, like, you know, Tom Cruise or Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg. What you don't hear is you don't hear them talk about the adaptations they have to make because they don't have the budget, or like the simplicity that you need to start to take on because you don't have the budget. And so, you know, two of the things I knew that we had to get really, really right, and this is why I'm so grateful for this team here, is I knew the performances had to be legit. Because if the performances are not legit, it'd be like, okay, I'm out, right? I knew the performances had to be really legit, and I knew that the lighting and the sound had to be really good, because the lighting is such that, like, even Jeffrey mentioned it. If you get the lighting kind of even a little bit less dramatic than it is, it takes away a lot from what you're actually making. And so, just going into the film and knowing, like, I can only do so many things, and I can only do so many things at this budget really, really well. What are the things that matter the most in this situation? And I think I even document some of that stuff. I'll even document, like, if I need more time, these are the scenes that I need more time on because these are more critical than these other scenes, right? So things like that, I think, go into the planning, but you never know what's going to happen, and sometimes the car doesn't show up. So, you know,
exactly.
it is what it is.
but that's, I think a lot of times those restrictions birth a lot of cool creativity. I know we talk a lot about theme parks here on OG55, right? Where it's like, even like cool things like the Haunted Mansion stretching room. That cool effect was birthed out of the logistics of having to get you underground and beyond the berm and under the train tracks. You know what I'm saying? But it's a cool effect, and it's like iconic now.
Yeah,
but that was birthed out of necessity, right?
Yes.
Which is fascinating to me. And so sometimes those restrictions sort of create a lot of cool creative opportunities. I know our friend Bricky talks about that a lot, but he's absolutely right about that, where, so I think that goes for theme parks, but also filmmaking,
It does.
So,
and then sometimes you try things that just don't work. We had a gimbal shot when Audrey stands up at the table. Well, actually, we see her standing. The very first time that she stands up at the table, we were going to do a gimbal shot where we're behind her, she's sitting in front of us, and we see the light, and we see her. We're looking at her back, okay. And we were going to take the gimbal, and as she moves back, we're going to move the gimbal back, and as she stands, we were going to stand with her, and then we were going to go around the table with this gimbal, and it was not working, man. Like, we were like, this is a cool idea, but it is not working on this in the way we're doing it. And it's way too complex, and this room is too small to pull this off in the way we would kind of like to pull this off. So one of the things I think is really fun about filmmaking is you get to try stuff. And as long as you have like a plan A and a plan B, you can try the thing you want to do and then fall back on the thing you're like, oh, this will still work, but and that happens even in the edit. So like with Josh, in the script, the intro sequence is different. The exit sequence is different. When they all get up and leave is different. And then Josh had to be like, okay, I'm going to try and creatively solve some of these things, which I'll let Josh talk about.
Yeah.
But another thing we also tried in the edit that Josh can talk about was we really tried hard for when Jeffrey sits down. He's the first person that sits down, and the Reclamation Society is on the screen. We really tried hard for Jeffrey's shadow to wipe the Reclamation Society away as he was sitting down.
Love it.
And we could just not make that work. I mean, Josh was doing a great job, but it was like, so in other words, what I love is being able to test certain things and see if they work in the moment. And we do that when we're writing. I do it when I'm directing, and we're on the set and we're doing different things, and then we do it in the edit too. So I don't know, Josh, if you want to talk about some of the things that didn't work that we scrambled on and did differently.
Yeah, the editing process is massively important in filmmaking. Josh, you want to like kind of elaborate into like what you kind of encountered here with Disclosure?
Sure. I mean, I'll finish off the story here, like right with just that opening shot. Jay wanted a title to be a certain size, which it shouldn't be tiny. Realistically, he wanted it to be a certain size, and the way that Jeffrey comes across the screen, left like just a little bit of the last letter in Disclosure, right? And like I could wipe it away, but it wasn't a natural fit of his shadow wiping it away. So it was just like, oh, he's wiping it away, and then there's just like a weird fade in the background. And like a little tiny bit of the letter somewhere, and I moved the lettering around so many different times, and eventually we just were like, Jay was just like, just put it in front of him, and let it fade away. And it is what it is in the film. I really wanted it to be that. That was like an idea that I brought to the table, and I tried to work on it like so many times. But in doing something like this, the challenge of it isn't, can you edit things quickly together? It's like, how much room can you let this breathe? Yeah. Versus how quickly can you get the pacing of this film going? Because it's 15 minutes short. 10 minutes of it is people talking at a table. It could be very uninteresting, it could be very slow and boring. And so, thankfully, Sam had a great soundtrack that went along with this. But like while I did it, I didn't have any of that music, so I just kind of had to feel how quickly can these people talk at this table while you gain the information that they're trying to say, but not getting bored at the same time. So I was just trying to find that like right pacing of it, and referencing, Jeffrey tapping on the table. Art does these great like head gestures, and then there are other people, like when you talk about the general at the table, he's very stoic and very still. So trying to find like the juxtapositions of people's movements and actions towards other people who are much more still, and allowing those personalities to kind of come out as well. That was all something that was a big part of the edit. And like was being said before, because this is a still camera at a table, there's a challenge to that. And really the challenge is to be able to invoke those personalities and allow all of those small gestures to matter as much as possible.
Yeah, no, that sounds incredibly difficult to do that, because you're right, of like there's a lot of pressure on this, because like you said, there's not a lot going on. It's just a table, and the performances and the editing process plays into all that. So there's a lot of pressure on your plate, Josh, to kind of get that right. And it's crazy to me. So when you went into this, you didn't have the music. So you were editing.
Yeah. I mean, like, typically in a film, like you wouldn't have the music or sound effects or anything until much later.
Wow.
In that way, it allowed me to kind of just feel out the pacing of these characters. In a weird way, it was like the silence allowed it to be more of a horror movie, suspense kind of thriller than maybe it ended up turning out to be. Just because, like, for example, Art has like a lot of these really great hand movements that are much more proper of, like of a character like that. Because he's of the faith, like it just feels like, oh, he's a really nice guy, and he seems, as he sits down at the table, are you religious? And he's smiling at you, but like as it goes on further, Art starts to scare me, because he starts like quoting, doing all these quotes, and like looking down the camera and being like, "Do you get it?" And because I didn't have the music, it was like, "Oh, this is kind of scary. I want to linger on this longer." And I was hoping that Sam would kind of, pick up with that with the music, which is great. He did. Like Jeffrey does a lot of these hand movements, the tapping on the eyebrow and stuff like that. And again, because you're looking down the barrel of the camera the whole time that everybody's doing it, those things just mattered a lot more. And I wanted to linger on those gestures a lot more, because it was like, oh, this invokes emotion from me, even though they're just small pieces of the puzzle here.
Yeah. I love that.
Just to brag on Josh a little bit more too. So Nathan had never been a DP before, and Josh does amazing YouTube videos, but hasn't worked in short film like this before. So I think it was really fun, because having been Josh's friend for almost a decade now, really close to a decade, just about 10 years, what was really fun was being able to say, like, dude, we get to work on a project together, because we're both huge film fans, and we've talked about doing these things forever. Let's work together on this. And I think that it was very satisfying to work with new friends and other older friends. It was really cool. It was really, really cool.
No, absolutely. And Pandora says here, yeah, definitely a menacing feel. And maybe that is also like you guys were saying, like the lighting, the black and white. Jay, when did you decide like you wanted the black and white element? Was it because it takes place a certain era, or was that more of an aesthetic thing, or both, or what was that? Where did that kind of get birthed?
There's several reasons for that. But I want to go back 1 second to the music. The music comes in last, because composers time the music to moments. So if you watch the film again, and I would encourage everyone to do this, he plays a track over everyone sitting down. And then as soon as disclosure pops up, you hear the track change dramatically, and it gets louder and it gets more. And he's doing that for dramatic effect, right? That's causing us to feel more like oh, this is meaningful, that in a certain way. We also, like, when the track, I worked with, most of my interaction with Sam was to give him the vision for what I thought like the track could sound like, and then also to come alongside and be like, hey, like the pacing of this track at this point is either good or bad or whatever, right? So that was a really fun process too. But okay, so you asked about black and white. Well, the first reason I wanted to shoot in black and white is because, again, one of the things I think you need to do as a filmmaker is you need to think about how complex of a film can I make without getting either getting over my skis or getting in over my head, right? In other words, I want you to watch this and go, that's as close to a feature film that I've seen in theaters as Jay can get right now, right? I don't want you to look at that and go like, oh, that didn't, like, what was wrong? That something's wrong here. It doesn't seem like very professional. Which, by the way, if you watch enough short films, not to criticize other people, because filmmaking is very difficult, but a lot of short films can come off as not very cinematic, right? Because it's really hard to get money to shoot these things. And so when you ask yourself, what do I do to make sure that this is cinematic? What I do is I try to start removing complexity. Well, color is more complex than black and white is, right? Especially when you're shooting on something that you've never shot on before, like an iPhone. I've never shot on an iPhone before. I need to remove complexity because I don't want to take something on and have it not look right. I want it to look good. Now, black and white also works because of the subject matter. It also works because of the style of lighting that we've chosen, and it also works because of the time period. So it's easy. It's an easy choice to make, to say like time period wise, look wise, drama of the shadows wise. I mean, we spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time making sure that like I would look in the monitor. By the way, the monitor that's on my desk is the monitor that I brought to set because I didn't have another monitor. So I'm just going to use this one. I would look at, like, for example, I'd look at Jeffrey. I actually had two stories, one for Art and one for Jeffrey, and they can talk about the lighting too. I'd love to hear their take on it. But when I was looking at Jeffrey, what I'd always say is like, I'm okay if I can't see his right eye. If his right eye is in shadow, I'm okay with that. But I got to see that left eye if I can't see that right eye. Because if I don't see the left eye, then he's not looking down the barrel of the gun at me and saying like, there are no alien life forms, right? I'm like, oh, okay, wait a minute. So the artistry around lighting was intentional to add as much drama as you could possibly get out of that scene. And I would love to hear what Art and Jeremy Art and Jeffrey think of this. But the other thing that I wanted to say about Art was we were having a really hard time with some of the actors because their eyelids, when you have top-down lighting, the lighting's coming down from here, just like my hat, right? If my hat's hiding my face, their eyelashes were shading their eyeball. And so I went to the hair and makeup and I was like, is there anything you can do to help with like the like, I don't know how to fix this problem. Do I got to change the lighting or can I change? Because we tried doing all these lighting changes, but sometimes you start to get to like, oh, that's cool lighting, but obviously like the panel is in the shot, so I can't use that. And so Jessica, our hair and makeup artist, came in and put mascara on Art, and we did that on somebody else too, because we were trying to get the eyelids to or the eyelashes to stay out of their face. But what did you guys think about the lighting? How did it? So Jeffrey, you mentioned it when you came and sat down, and like it felt dramatic. How did you play with the lighting on what you were doing?
Well, like I said, when I came in and I sat down in the chair the first time and the lights were on, it changed everything because you couldn't see anything beyond the edge of the table. And so I could see Maya because Maya was my reader, but she was standing at the edge of the table so I could just see her, but I couldn't see anything else. Like I didn't realize you were using an iPhone until we were almost done because it was so dark on that other side of the table that it really sort of informed the performance a lot because it was ominous. When you sat down on that chair, you had this feeling of fear about who's on the other side. What are they asking? So it really set that tone and that mood. And I don't know that when I was sitting in the chair, I was aware of where light was hitting me. I didn't feel where it was falling across my face or what was shadowed or what wasn't, because the light felt like it was right there. And I think that it was, but it was just, it really sort of set the mood for me as an actor. Like, okay, I get where we're at now. It's almost that plain light bulb over your head interrogation moment that we've all seen in movies.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, Jeffrey, because not only is the lighting, for aesthetic purposes, but like you were saying, as an actor, it gets you in the role. It gets you in that environment. That's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. I was just to say that there are things that you, the actor, can't prepare for until you're on set on the day, and you don't know what it's going to be. But there are many things, and there were times when Jay was trying to get us to see where the lens was. They were putting pink tape, so we knew exactly where the lens was, because as an actor, we're taught, don't look at the camera. Like, look off to the side, look this way. Do not look in the camera. But we needed to, and for eyeline, it was so dark you couldn't see. But that hot pink tape was able to like draw your eye right where it needed to go. But there are things on the day that you don't know until you get there.
That's interesting. Art, what was your experience with the lighting situation and all that?
Yeah, like it's like similar to what Jeffrey said, but almost like in an opposite way, because like I mean you're aware, like you could feel like the light and it's very dark, and you know where you're looking is very dark. But what I noticed and what it made me feel as the character was, or what I felt more than anything, was the darkness behind me. So it kind of felt like I was like my back was against the wall. You know what I mean? Like there was no, like I didn't have anywhere to go. There was like nowhere to run. So what I was like aware of and what I adopted as the character is like that blackness behind me, you know, and it's because of where the light's coming down and the limited light that is there because of like the interrogation scene. But that felt like the wall was like right up against my back. You know what I mean? And so that meant, it was just a feeling. It just gave me a vibe that as the character, like, this is very important. And like, but what is this also? Like, who is this person asking me something? But clearly this makes it very important, and they're not going to let me out unless they get what they want or whatever. You know what I mean? So it creates that sort of, when you put yourself in that perspective, like I imagine myself being in the waiting room and seeing like all these other people. And I'm like, why are they here? Why are they here? Like, why am I here? So then when you get in, it's like, but now you're shut off from all that. And that had everything to do with the lighting. So that's like similar to what Jeffrey said. It helps like inform your character of either the situation or the feeling where exactly you're at. Cause sometimes you just can't picture that when you're reading the script and you're on your way to the set. So yeah, like it's very helpful, you know, cause you could work off of that for sure. And then one other like small thing, what Jay reminded me, when they put the mascara on to like lift my eyelashes at some point, I don't know, I was doing something and Jay's like, are you all right? What's going on? And I'm like, a flake of that mascara fell in my eye or something, like, because I wasn't, you know, she caked it on to lift it. And I was like, I think I don't know. I can't remember what Jay said, but it was like, yeah, but anyway, it's because I got some mascara in my eye, and I'm not used to having mascara at all. So it was kind of fun.
Wild.
Now, Remy D comes with a great question. This is fantastic. How much world building do you have to do in order to make your short feel organic? That's an interesting question, Jay. What do you think about that?
I'm actually interested in everybody answering this question, but I'll give you my answer to start with.
Sure.
Anytime I think you're dealing with science fiction, and anytime you're dealing with things that are real world, it is really important that you get a lot of things correct. So two things: you have to have really good world building, but when it's a, you know, a piece that's about time travel, you also have to get the time period right. Right. So like, for example, I'll tell you a couple things that came up as we were doing this. One of the reasons why Cyril's character pulls the folder back across the table and checks MK Ultra is because MK Ultra was not revealed to the national public until the Church Committee or the Church Commission in the 1970s. So the fact that Cyril knows this, one, it's interesting to the time travelers because they go, is this the guy that actually knows what's going on with time travel because he knows what the future, what's going to be revealed in the future? Or is this guy he's just so well researched and so in and knows who to talk to that he's discovered some of this information. So we're trying to create tension there, but you have to get that right. Because if you're watching and you know that the Church Commission didn't come out until the 1970s, like, this is 1966. This is wrong. You got it wrong, right? But even when we did the table read, you know, I think I had Northrop Grumman labeled as Northrop Grumman, and my friend, who worked for Lockheed, by the way, he's an aerospace engineer, goes, in the 1960s, by the way, I was doing some research and using AI to do the research, just like to search sites for me, and it told me that those were totally fine. So don't rely on AI. AI is going to send you the wrong direction. But my friend told me, like, hey, it was just Northrop and it was just Grumman. They didn't combine yet, right? Like it was not what was the term? There were several terms, like where you're like, you have to get all of those things right from a world building perspective. So that's the real history. From a science fiction standpoint, you have to have rules around time travel. right? Like so for example, this never shows up in the film. It shows up in the feature film a little bit, but we have a rule about time travel that time travel is done through wormholes, and those wormholes open up, but only for a certain amount of time. So like when you see Audrey and she says, I'm running out of time, like I'm not getting anywhere, it's because literally they're gonna have to go back to the future in not that much time, right? And so all of these things that are happening are part of a science fiction world that we've built. We were able to draw on, Nathan and I co-wrote a book, it's somewhere behind me. I don't know, I'll have to go find it, called Time Slingers. And it's more like an action adventure-y thing. It's not like psychological or anything. And we wrote that a long time ago together. But we drew a lot of like the research we had done on what time travel is and what the rules are and how the rules work we just said, hey, let's use some of those same rules in Disclosure and in the feature film that we have for this too. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering so even as I talk about that for Jeffrey and for even Josh with the edit, where do you draw in some of the world building because I know like you've both described that you built a lot of the world for your character yourself. So how did some of that stuff come about?
It's born out of the fact of the actor process that there has to be a reason for what you're doing on screen or it doesn't make any sense. And not everything is in the script. And so there's a lot of information in the script, and I take all of that information, and that sometimes doesn't inform why you do what you do as a character. So you have to dig into a backstory. You have to create a world yourself. It's like I said, you can't just hate something because you hate something. There's a reason that you don't believe what you're talking about. And my initial stab at Dr. Townsend was he had issues with his parents. Like they were very woo-woo people back in the the 20s because he watched them fall into that whole spiritual thing, and he was like, I'm not into that at all. And so he really went for the scientific route of stuff, but that still didn't inform the whole other pieces that I wanted to take the world. So then I had to flip it again, and then with Jay's help we're able to do that. But I think in short, sometimes you have to spend extra time because you don't have the luxury of all of the time on screen to build that world. You have to bring the world with you as an actor or an artist and put that out there. So you have to do your homework to help inform the world that you're making.
Well said, well said. Now, Maya, you were a big part in this world building as a casting director. I mean, that was a huge part of this world building. What's your take on that, on Remy's question?
I wasn't involved in building the world as such on paper, but what I think was important was making sure that when we were reviewing people's tapes and looking at the callbacks and things like that was, do I believe this? Do I believe them? Is this, are they just spouting lines? Is this a caricature? How much of a caricature? Does that make sense? But also the character, when they put on that character, does it feel lived in? Does it feel, or does it feel authentic? Because the camera picks up not just your face, it picks up your eyes and the thought behind the eyes. So if one thing that happens a lot is you'll get so rehearsed in the lines, it becomes devoid of any thought and it doesn't look real. It becomes a little hollow and it just doesn't connect. And I think that was something that, helps make it feel the world more organic and believable as well. So if their performances aren't believable, then the situation itself is not going to be believable. And therefore the story becomes not fantastical, but it's just like, you don't have buy-in from the audience.
Right. Well said. Well said. Now, Josh, in terms of the editing process and world building, making this feel organic, what was your experience with this?
Yeah, I mean, like I've always looked at editing like a puzzle, so like I'm literally building the world, like I'm piece by piece putting it all together, and I feel like one of the things about the way that Jay writes and the way that he gave me editing notes was really pretty precise in terms of like, this is kind of what I want, this is how I feel it should be. He was giving me exact takes from which to pull from, and my first edit was exactly what he had put down on paper, and then I tried to eventually find different takes, put them in instead of what he had given me to try and find like a more nuanced personality approach from certain actors. And, eventually it got to where it was. I said this before, like, I feel like the end product is an homage to what Jay's first edit idea was. It really is kind of like, when I talk about world building in the editing sense, I'm talking about like, how much can I pack into such a small amount of time? As far as like, who are these characters? What do they mean? How do I get everybody's performances across while still trying to get to an end point that and not allow certain scenes, allowing like Jeffrey to outplay and become like the main character, or allowing the audience to ever feel like any one person is the main character. I wanted people to kind of like move along pretty quickly to get to that end point. Again, going back, Sam does a great job at kind of like giving a finality of like the first 10 minutes and kind of moving into this reveal at the end. And that's what I was kind of always moving for was how do I get to this reveal at the end, but also allow these people to flourish and show enough personality to where it does feel like, oh, we're in the 1960s. These people all have lives and they're all here for this specific reason.
I have a very specific example of Josh with world building too, right? In the early parts of the script, we had when people are sitting down, instead of them sitting down sequentially one by one, we had it a bar of 6 people all sitting down at the same time. And one of the things that Josh did was that he broke it out into people sitting down one at a time. How is that related to world building? Because every character, if you go back and watch the film, every character hints at who they are by how they sit down. When Jeffrey sits down, he sits down and goes, I was going to cuss. Am I allowed to cuss, OG?
Oh, yeah. You're fine.
Jeffrey is sitting down and going, where the fuck am I? Right? Like that's Jeffrey's approach to sitting down. He's looking around like, what? Why am I here? And I'm about to put you in your place because you're trying to interview me for some reason, right? Whereas you'll notice when Art sits down as Father Alvarez, Art sits down and smiles across the table at his interviewer. You'll notice that when Kelly sits down as Dr. Shire, she sits down very prim and proper. Like I know my research and I'm here to talk to you about this. When Cyril sits down, he sits down and looks around like someone's going to attack him, right? And then when you see Jamal sit down as Riker, he sits down and is like, I already know what's going on. So just so you know, like I already know. And so every single person, and so Josh being able to say, I'm going to break out what I'm thinking to myself, I got to save time because we're going to do a lot of dialogue. So I want everybody to get into place kind of fast. So it's kind of like this kind of tiled look on the screen. Josh is like, no, I think I can actually build the world a little better because everybody is embodying the character and the character sends signal to us even as they sit down in a chair, right? So I think that that's a way that editing really helps build the world as well. And actually, we tested a lot of different things about them leaving, but it's the same thing, right? Like the way each one of them leaves is, and having them be able to have like there's the empty chair and the people get up and walk off the screen either way was fun, like just playing with things like that. So Josh did a great job of world building even in the edit for sure. Oh, there's also another thing. This is something that Josh picked up on that was great. There is at the final scene where we're filming Audrey and she's talking on the speakerphone. There is a moment when she goes, I can't remember the exact line, but it's like when Esther, I think is the line, her hair falls down. Well, okay, on screen, you would think like, yeah, but that's kind of like a natural movement of hair. But when you're in the audience, it's so distracting because you pay attention to her hair as opposed to her face or whatever. So what does Josh do? He cuts back to the speakerphone just for that hair to fall, and then cuts back to her, right? So there's all these little things of saying like, what's the best way this shows up on screen? And it's all these little choices that you make along the way.
Absolutely. Art, what was your experience with this whole world building thing? How did you approach this?
Yeah, the way I approached it was, and I alluded it to a little bit, like I imagined I'm in the waiting room, like in the hallway, and sitting next to me is the general, and sitting next, and and then I see Cyril, and I'm like, why are these people here? But I also imagine, building the world. One, I took into account the decade we're in. So I imagine like my office in the church offices is like wood panel board, rotator phone. And then I imagined also that because I'm the one that gets to research all this type of stuff, the paranormal and aliens, and compare it to scripture, then I'm kind of given the job by the clergy above me that they don't want to do. So when I get the opportunity, and when they come in my office, they're like, hey, we got a call. They need somebody from here. You're going to go do it. You're the one that reads up on this anyway. So from my perspective, I'm like, great. Somebody's going to listen to me. You know what I mean? Because the clergy don't want to. They're like, just you do this. So now when I know I'm going to be interviewed, so when I show up and I'm happy to see Audrey because I don't know her, but we're actually going to have a conversation about the stuff that I work on instead of just being, so, that kind of helps me be the nice guy in the beginning. Like, I'm happy to see you in a sense, even if this is kind of a forbidding or a claustrophobic scenario. And then by the end of it, though, I do want to get across the fact that, there's a spiritual war at stake here, and that does have to be serious. So I can come off friendly because, yes, I finally get to talk about it, but there's also consequences to this, and it is serious. And if you don't look at it from our point of view as Catholics or the clergy, then you're really missing something with whatever information all these other people have. So, when I go into like the world building of it, like Jeffrey said, where you're informed by the script and the scenarios, but there's other stuff there that's not there. That's like our job. And so for me to put myself in my office and the attitude of the clergy and the other people in the room, and I get to just be confused and excited at the same time and get to share my information, then all that building around it helps me as an actor to embody that character. So
love it. I love it.
And that's fun, actually. It's fun to do that.
I love it. Pandora here says, will there be more to this story? Jay, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, I can answer that. And actually, 7H John kind of hinted at that because they said, could it have turned into something like The Last Frontier on Apple, but for aliens? And yeah, this is what's called a proof of concept film. And so a proof of concept film is basically saying we're going to create a prototype of what a much bigger film might look like, right? The feature film is the big film, and this is the short film. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this film around to different producers and different studios and say, hey, look, if you give us money, we'll make this film, and it's going to be a cool film. It's going to be a feature length film. We'll hopefully put it in theaters or put it on streaming or wherever. And so, yeah, there will be more to this story. This story is like a portion of the feature film, right? Like there's these interviews, and the reason why they're doing this. It's still a group of time travelers looking to see if there's been a leak or an epiphany, meaning that someone has leaked time travel out to the people in the past, or they've realized that it's time travel instead of. So imagine, for example, the farmer who discovered the crash in Roswell, right? The government comes in, retrieves all the crash materials. Well, what if that was just a time-traveling drone from the future and not from an alien world, right? So those are the kind of things that we're playing with in the feature a little bit more. But in the feature film is a little bit more about Audrey's character and her journey into understanding who she's really working for, while also trying to figure out if there's a mole in her division. So the goal is that there will be more to this story. But it takes a long time to get through all of these things and pitch to people. And so it may take 10 years, but we'll try to make this story eventually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then we'll take one more question before we get out of here from John. What was in that dude's folder?
Oh, this is a good question. So this is what's really funny. In the actual folder is a bunch of there's a crossword puzzle. There's some newspaper clippings. that's that's why we don't show you to you, because we didn't do anything else with that. But what's in the folder, and he references this if you watch the film again, it's all of the research he's collected around UFOs and paranormal phenomena and secret government projects. Because what Cyril's goal is that Cyril's goal is to know what is not being told to us. In other words, Cyril's the guy you want to have lunch with if you're like, no, I really want to know what's going on, Cyril. Tell me all the things you've heard and all the things that you've seen. And he's got that with him, and that's why he keeps it so tight, because it's so important to him, and he doesn't want it getting into anybody else's hands. He gives it to Audrey for a second, and then he takes it back, right? Because he's like, I'm not sure if I can trust this lady. So that's kind of like what Cyril's character is all about, and that's kind of where the folder aspect of it comes in.
There's an edit of this where because Jay shot multiple things, right? So there is like a static shot of the speaker on the table. There are shots of him passing the folder along, and ultimately, we had to have a discussion of like, does the folder matter? Does seeing this transition of folder from one person to another matter enough to the story that's being told, or is it a distraction? Does it just become distracting from what we're doing? And Jay kind of made that call of like, let's ditch the folder. So ultimately, like, what could have been almost better, or what is better, is not knowing anything at all. But like, there is a story out there where he passes the folder, they open the folder, you get to see what's inside of it, etc. And that's just non-existent. So that could have happened, but it didn't.
There we go. Exactly. I want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat today, breaking this down. I want to thank Jay, Art, Josh, Maya, Jeffrey. This was a really, really fun conversation. I'm going to start with Art, and then we'll end with Jay. Art, thank you so much for joining us, talking about Disclosure. If you want to let everybody at home know where they can maybe find you on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram. The handle would be Arturo_P_Razzo. But yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast. It was always good to see it again, and then to get to talk about it, and then hear other perspectives that I hadn't heard yet. I'd heard some perspectives, and then you're always learning more. So thanks for doing it. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Art. And Mr. Josh Taylor, it's always good to see you, sir. If you want to remind everybody where they could find you on social media.
Sure. Pleasure to be here as well. Not talking about theme parks or Disney movies. But you can follow me at Modern Mouse Josh on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. YouTube's just Modern Mouse. I'm always editing videos over there. And so if you like talking about movies, animation, things like that, you can go follow me there. Or I've got a ton of shorts that are always going up on TikTok and Instagram. Those are mostly where you can find me these days.
There he is, Mr. Modern Mouse. Maya, thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. Great questions too, everybody. Yeah, my Instagram handle is @official Maya Jairam, as it is spelled in the little box. MayaJairam. So yeah, that's my Insta handle, and I neither tick nor talk, and I'll leave the YouTube to the you people, not me. So yeah, just on Insta.
I love it. Jeffrey, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
You can get me on Instagram at Jeffrey Bigger Actor. That's where I post all my stuff that I'm doing as far as this goes. And thank you so much for having us. This is great. I love talking process and all the things. It's just lovely to hear all this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And Jay, little fun fact here after we close out. you witnessed Josh get recognized at Disneyland from a cast member. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Josh and I were having dinner at the Craftsman bar, and one of the cast members came over and said, like, "Hey, I really enjoy your channel. You do awesome work." It was and Josh was very gracious and cool about it, and I was like, "Bro, you're getting recognized for being on YouTube. That's amazing." It was really fun. So yeah,
I love it.
Whatever.
I love it. Jay, where can everybody find you on social media, my friend?
Yeah, and I'm gonna say to Lucas and Disney, because he said something earlier that we actually didn't get to address, and he said way back up, he said, I'm wondering where the inspiration for the music kind of came from and like how that was all figured out. And Lucas, what I had told our composer was that I really liked what Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross were doing, because there was a lot of what they were doing with heavily dramatized things that were not necessarily action oriented, like The Social Network, and what they were doing with the soundtrack and making it somewhat chaotic but also somewhat exciting was really cool to me. And so that's an answer to that question. Is I kind of thought that was a good inspiration for it, and he did a great job with adding that. But yeah, you can find me and the film over at the How Stories Work with Jay Shearer YouTube channel. I'm over there breaking down films, talking about films, trying to figure out how to do films better myself, and so I think a lot about these kinds of things, but that process of learning about how to think about them is what I'm trying to document on that YouTube channel. So I think I have recently done a video where I broke down the border crossing scene in Sicario. I did give you my top 5 alien movies. That's also one thing that I did do. My social media person told me that was something I should do. But yeah, no, I really appreciate everybody. Thank you, OG. Fantastic questions from you. Great hosts. I knew this was going to be a great time because we had a really good time when we did the no vacancy version. And I'm just really appreciative of everybody involved in this project. And I can't wait to work with everybody in the future.
There we go. And yeah, if you're watching this on How Stories Work, you can find me on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking all about theme parks, a lot of Disney stuff, but we even dip into the corporate side with like Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro, all that fun stuff. So check us out on Orange Grove 55. Jay, I think you need to help me with the closing out of the stream because I don't have access to that. But everybody at home, thank you for
I'm just gonna sit here and watch you kind of vamp while I just sit here and not in the stream.
but I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to everybody support this film. I will be linking it after the show in the description. Make sure you support the film, watch the film, share the film. It's great stuff. And we're all looking forward to more disclosure in the future. And then thank you for watching How Stories Work and OG 55. Until next time. Bye, everybody.